actually people care about economic complexity. Mixing artificial intelligence or machine learning with economic development is not just an academic curiosity, but it's something that has become important for many countries. One of them is Malaysia. Malaysia's new industrial master plan sets economic complexity as the #1 target or the #1 mission of their economy. In Europe, you might be familiar with the famous Draghi report. Last September, Mario Draghi released a report about European competitiveness, and one of the things that they wanted to do was to understand if Europe was leading or lagging in key technologies related to sustainability or related to digitization. What techniques did they use to understand if Europe was lagging or leading compared to the US or China? Well, they used the concept of relatedness from the economic complexity literature. In the UK, the way that they're thinking about their government strategy in the Office of Science is using, again, these ideas. So these ideas have made it to the world, and now we understand that there's a future in which we need to continue to improve them because these ideas are useful. They allow us to understand economies at a high level of granularity. But what's new in this space? We started this space many years ago using trade data. And we use that trade data to explain international variations in economic growth, inequality, and emissions. And many people were able to reproduce these findings. But we also understood during this period that there are important limitations of using economic complexity measures derived from trade. One of them is that trade data tends to be very biased in favor of countries that are integrated to the value chains of their neighbors. So when you use trade data to measure economic complexity, you're going to get a very high score for Slovakia or Mexico because they're integrated to the value chains of United States or Germany in that case. And you're going to get a very low score for a country like Australia, which exports a lot of raw materials, but will have an intuition that something else must be going on. So for about a decade, people tried to fiddle with the formula and see if they could improve upon this by changing the way that we calculated these vectors. But what we had a few years ago was a simpler idea. It says maybe that information is not hidden in trade data, it's hidden in other sources. What if we grab data from patents or research papers and calculate measures of economic complexity just like the ones that we calculated with trade and see how complementary they are to those? And when we use, for example, patent data and we replace products by technological categories, we get a measure of complexity in which Mexico all of a sudden is not doing so great and Australia is doing fantastic. And when we do research, Australia is doing really great, and countries like Chile are also doing much better than if we only were to look at export products. So we were able to find those complementarities, and those complementarities actually led to better models when it came to explaining future economic growth and international variations in inequality and emissions. Actually, our latest forecasts tell us that the world, is different from the one where we grew up. It's a world in which most of the growth that we're going to experience over the next decade is going to be concentrated on South and Southeast Asia. The #1 country in terms of growth forecast, according to economic complexity, is going to be India. Another big economies that are going to be growing are those of Philippines, Vietnam, and Indonesia. But we wanted to go even beyond the data sets that people have been able to collect, the administrative records on trade, patents, and papers. So we decided to go after digital products. And this was motivated in part by conversations that I was having with people at central banks, which they also wanted to know about digital trade, and they were unable to produce that data themselves. Because there's something uncomfortable about digital trade, which is this mode 3 of trade, in which if you are in Europe and you buy something in Amazon, it appears that you bought something from Luxembourg, when in reality that's not the case. If you're in the United States and you use TikTok, you're doing a digital export to the Cayman Islands. Well, that's not really the case. There's a source that is different from the fiscal residency of many of these firms. So what we did is, again, we used the advantage of being good at machine learning in my team, and we collected corporate revenue data and digital consumption patterns to create a detailed data set of digital trade for hundreds of countries, dozens of sectors, and thousands of firms. And I'm going to give you a couple of nuggets. The first one is that digital trade is a train that you don't want to miss because it's growing much faster than other forms of trade. It's growing at 25% annualized growth rate per year. That's enormous, for any macroeconomic statistic. The other one is that it has a very different geography. Every country exports and imports because eventually you need to export so you can buy the things that you're not able to do. But when it comes to digital, you can be a net importer. You can import digital and you can buy that using your physical product exports. So how are these ideas being put into practice? And one way in which we put these ideas into practice is by putting them in the hands of people, not just in their minds, by creating tools that allow them to explore this information. So one example is Data Saudi, which is a platform that we have built together with the Ministry of Economy and Planning on Saudi Arabia and has become a flagship data distribution system for the economy of the kingdom. Another example is Data Mexico, which is something that we built together with the Secretary of the Economy of Mexico, and it's a very comprehensive data distribution system that includes data not only generated by the Secretary of the Economy, by a number of different government entities. And another example is the OEC, which is a platform that we developed more than 15 years ago now, and that makes available international trade data, at the subnational level for a large number of countries. And the reason why we build this is because of this very simple but profound idea, which is that the best time to build a fire station is before the fire. So many of you work in government and you're putting out fires all the time. There's always things going wrong that you're going to have to take care of. And that's a reality of working on a large organization or working with large numbers of people. And if you always try to react to those things and build something once the problem happens, you're always going to be playing catch-up. So the idea of building a fire station is not because there's a fire, but because there could be a fire in the future. And if you don't build that infrastructure first, you're not going to be well prepared to deal with that fire. So let me give you 3 examples. In 2019, we started working with the Secretary of the Economy of Mexico to build Data Mexico. And in 2020, the world changed. Everybody had to work from home, including people that were working as diplomats for Mexico around the world. But since we had been preparing, we were able to release Data Mexico, and we empowered the entire Mexican diplomatic units to use this platform in their foreign direct investment and export promotion efforts. And it was an extremely successful program in which the central government of Mexico trained people across the world to use Data Mexico to generate content, to use them in the presentations, and to help attract that foreign direct investment and to support their export promotion efforts in a world in which everybody could only meet on Zoom.